Hi everyone, welcome to my Treasure the Art. Hope you are doing good. So, a few weeks back, I was thinking about painting a picture from the parable of the prodigal son, but for some reason, God kept nudging me to paint something else, which you might already know if you have been watching all of my videos. But this time, I didn't feel a strong nudge to paint anything in particular. So, I will be painting what I wanted to paint for so long, a picture from the prodigal son story. After all, maybe this is what God wanted me to paint this week. So, 3 days ago, we celebrated India's Independence Day, a day that reminds us of freedom, of breaking free from what once held us back, of the long and costly journey to freedom. But here is the thing, not all freedom is the same. Some freedom brings life, and some freedom can actually leave you more trapped than before. And that's exactly what Jesus shows us in the parable of the prodigal son. Morris has always found this parable really interesting. And when I was talking to him earlier this week, he shared some very insightful things from the story. So, let's dive into them. To begin with, this story isn't about one lost son, but two lost sons. And both these sons are us in different seasons of our life. So, the story begins with something very shocking as we can see in Luke chapter 15 verse 12. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them." In that culture, this was not only a very disrespectful and mean thing to say, but it was as good as telling the father, "I wish you were dead so I could just have what's rightfully mine and finally be free to live my life the way I want to." Can you relate to this feeling of wanting freedom to live life on your own terms? What the younger son was asking wasn't just a request for money, it was a rejection of the relationship. The son wanted the father's things, but not the father himself. Sometimes we too can think freedom means cutting ourselves off from authority, boundaries, or dependence on anyone. Sometimes we want God's blessings, His provision, His help in trouble, but not His presence. We want what's in His hands, but we are not too interested in His heart. The son saw his father as a limitation and not as his protector and provider. Isn't it relatable? But fasten your seat belts. It's going to get even more relatable as we proceed. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. The son gathers everything and goes to a far country, not just a nearby town, not just a different street, a far country. When we chase false freedom, we want to get as far away as possible from anything or anyone that we think might hold us back. This is a picture of what sin does. It creates distance in our hearts, our minds, and our choices. The far country is a picture of total independence. And independence, while good in the context of a country's liberation, can be dangerous in the context of a heart that cuts itself off from its true source of life. The son didn't just leave home, he went as far away from the father as possible, probably thinking, finally, I am free to do what I want. But the thing is, true freedom doesn't come from distancing yourself from the Father. It comes from getting close to Him. So, the son goes and explores what he thinks is freedom. He burns away all his money. Jesus says the son wasted all his wealth in wild living. I imagine big feasts, music, friends who only stuck around as long as the money flowed. He probably thought this is living until the money ran out. It's the kind of reckless life that makes you scream, look at me, I am so free. But here is the thing, the world often confuses indulgence with freedom. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. Freedom is being able to do what you were made for. And without the Father, the Son's freedom quickly turns into a shackle. The thing about sin is this: it promises you the world but leaves you with nothing. And that's exactly what happened to this young son. Let's continue with the story. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Just when the young son thought things couldn't get worse, in came the famine, making his already miserable life even worse. His pockets were completely empty. He had no money left to his name and no one to go to. All his friends had probably abandoned him by this point, and the only job he could find was feeding pigs. Now imagine his situation in the Jewish context in which the story is based. Feeding pigs for a living was probably as low and unclean as it gets. And he was so hungry. He began to long to eat the pig's food. Think about that. To come from a wealthy father's house to envying pig's food. This is the moment every pursuit of freedom away from the Father eventually leads to. The thing that promised life leaves you empty, hungry, and longing for something more. This is a very clear reminder that independence from God always ends up feeling like captivity to something else. This is where the story begins to get interesting. And I would like Morris to take over from here.
Okay, so we'll continue. Let's read from verses 17 to 20. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father." This is where everything begins to change for this man. The Bible says he came to his senses. Sometimes it's only when you have hit rock bottom that you realize rock bottom is solid ground to stand on and turn back. So the son rehearses and plans exactly what he wants to tell his father. I'll tell my father I'm not worthy to be called his son. Maybe he'll hire me as a servant. He's come to the point where in his head, the father no longer looks like a loving father, but like an angry taskmaster to whom a person's worth has to be earned. Haven't we all felt a similar way at some point in our lives? Like we can't face the father from the mess that we are in? Or that we need to prove to the father that, oh, we are working on ourselves, we recognize that we have done wrong, just so that we can earn his love and acceptance. And we feel like, I don't know what will happen if the father sees my fear or my shame or my guilt or my unworthiness of being in his presence. In fact, that's exactly what Adam felt in the Garden of Eden when he ate the forbidden fruit. He was afraid, and so he hid himself from the father. But the father comes looking for him from a place of concern and care. And this is basically what we'll get to see in this story too. So let's proceed. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. So here's the plot twist. The father sees him from a distance and runs to him. And even before the son could finish his rehearsed apology, the father runs to him, hugs him, and kisses him. Did you know that in that culture, older men, especially men of stature, didn't run? It was considered undignified, because for someone like that to run, they would have to lift up their robe and expose their legs, which was considered a shameful act. But the father didn't care about appearances. His love was greater than what people or society would think about him. And when he reaches his son, he doesn't scold him, nor does he lecture him. He just commands his servants to bring the best robe, to put a ring on his finger, and throw a feast in honor of his son's return. And this is the key of the story. The Father doesn't just free us from our past, but He also restores our rightful place.
And that's true freedom.
The kind that can only be found in the Father's love. Now you might be thinking, well, I've never run away from God. I've never disobeyed Him. I've lived as righteously as possible, never missed church, always read my Bible, and have prayed. I'm nothing like the prodigal son. Well, in that case, let's now look at the elder son. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. "Your brother has come," he replied, "and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." So as we just read, we can clearly see the obedient elder son is furious and is burning up with jealousy. How dare the father throw a feast for his debaucherous son? On the surface, he looks like a loyal and obedient son, but his words reveal something deeper. His relationship with the father had also been transactional. You can almost hear the bitterness in his words. The elder son was physically close to the father, but relationally far. He thought the father's love had to be earned, so he was busy working his way to collect as many points as possible. And oh, was he keeping score? To him, if anyone deserved to be celebrated, it was him and him alone. What this reveals is that the elder son was never really living like a son, but like a servant. Now let's look at what the father says to him. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.
Do you hear the freedom in the father's words?
It's the opposite of scarcity. In fact, this is the epitome of grace. What the father is basically telling the elder son is that you always had access to me and all of my resources, but you just never lived like you did. Sometimes we are like the elder son. We are in church, we are doing the right things, but deep down we either feel overlooked, uncelebrated, or unappreciated. And we start resenting others and their blessings. We begin to view life and God through the tainted lenses of our own brokenness. Here's the thing, both the sons were lost in different ways. One was lost in rebellion, while the other was lost in resentment. One ran away from the father's house, the other stayed but never truly knew the father nor enjoyed his presence. And if we are honest, we've all been both sons at different times. Sometimes we run to a far country in search of life our own way. Other times we are in the father's house, but our hearts are bitter, jealous, or self-righteous. So, finally, I'd like to close by saying that the father's heart is the same for both the sons or both kinds of seasons that we might be in. The father says to the prodigal son, come back home. And what the father says to the elder son is, everything I have is yours. Enjoy it. The real question is, will we choose to live our lives like children of the Father who know His heart, or like strangers who think they have to work to earn His love and acceptance? Because at the end of the day, the feast is ready, the music is playing, and the Father's arms are wide open. And there's only one thing left to do. It's for you to step in.
So, here is what the final painting looks like. Hope you all enjoyed this video and were blessed by it. Please let us know in the comments. And if you are new around here, please do subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching.
See you in the next video, everyone. Bye.